Welcome to Rapture Recovery Big Book Step Study Program of Action. This week we're going to be focusing on steps 8 and 9. So you are going to need to read starting on page 76, third paragraph down, and you're going to go all the way to page 84 and complete the first full paragraph on page 84. So what we're going to do here is we are going to work steps 8 and 9. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So far, we're going to do a quick little recap here. We started out in the prefaces of the big book. And we are celebrated in the preface the consistency of our program. In the foreword to the first edition, they address anonymity, and at this point in your journey, you should understand why this is our prized possession. We also made a gratitude list on our spiritual journey so we can take those gratitudes with us since we are on a spiritual journey that is going to lead to a spiritual experience. Then the foreword to the second edition, they give us all kinds of facts here. They tell us about the Oxford groups. They give validity to Dr. Silkworth. They explain how one alcoholic working with another alcoholic is the success of our program of service. They tell us that this book was written by 100 people, and they also at this point in the sobriety journey have come up with the traditions to help maintain the validity of the groups that are meeting in person. So then the foreword to the third edition, they are celebrating the rise of women. I have challenged you to find other women meetings in your local community to reach out to. In the foreword to the fourth edition, we talk about technology. They're kind of giving us a little preview of what's to come, and that is where we are right now. We are actually meeting on technology. Then we started with our step 1 work. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. They give us a doctor's opinion. You did this worksheet of your first drink inventory, sitting in facts over feelings. Then we went over to Bill's story. This was our first experience, strength, and hope of somebody working this program as it's outlined in the big book, and also working it in a fellowship environment and how it had a permanent, successful sobriety journey. We did a friends inventory here to kind of set us up for our 4th step. We did our unmanageability exercise so we could maybe take the friends inventory, but then also find places and things that we're having problems with. Then we went to There is a Solution, which is actually the guide of the 12 steps through the big book, and our fellowship, how we're going to have to make this a priority. We hit on some time management skills. We went to more about alcoholism. We realized that there were times that we tried to control our drinking. We understood that there was the obsession of the mind. We also had a fact-finding experience in what were the worst things that we did that could maybe prevent us from relapsing. That wrapped up our step 1. Then we went into step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We did a gratitude list on God. We referred to the bedevilments where all the problems we're having without God, and we understand the need to have God to be a spiritual solution to these problems. Then we went over into step 3. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. And the next piece of literature is how it works. We understand that we have to go to any lengths. Half measures availed us nothing. We're focusing on progress, not perfection. We journaled our 3rd step prayer. We understood that we needed to offer our physical selves. We needed to offer all of our difficulties so we could be a witness to others of our sobriety journey. And that wrapped up our first section of our workbook. Then we went into section 2, which is going to hit steps 4 through 9, which we're completing this week. We stopped in step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Then we went to 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. So we did all these activities with the worksheets. We did an evaluation of our inventory. Then we went to a trusted fellow, and we did our 5th step. Then we entered into our 6th step. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. We figured out what our defects of character were by literally providing a month-long journey of this activity. You can still be doing this now. It's very helpful. We went over and journaled our 7th step prayer, again, our 2nd prayer step. We also journaled last week what our feelings were, because feelings are indicators. They're not dictators. After we journaled out every single one of these prayers that we had, we humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Now, again, we're entering into step 8 and 9. I hope that you've had time to read, highlight, circle, write any thoughts that you're having in the margins of your big book. And so we're going to take some time and actually do step 8 and 9 this week. Our main discussion points here with your partner or your group or reaching out to people in the program and using these as discussion points is faith without works is dead. So kind of sit in some faith journeys that you've had in the past, that you've always sat in a consumer role and not a contributor role, and understand that just by doing this workbook, you are contributing to your recovery. You're also contributing to your sobriety journey. You're creating experience, strength, and hope to share with others. We understand here from reading this material that we need to go to any links. Spend some time discussing, what does any links look like, right? Have you had times in your past when you started a goal and you never completed it? What was your experience, strength, and hope with that? Why did you not complete it? We do not argue. So when we make this a list of people in our 8th step, we're just taking a journey back to our 4th step, which you did in this workbook, and writing down all the people's names and places and things that got written down there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to come up with amends. Now, a verbal amends is just an announcement for a living amends. This is a great week to reach out to other people in the program and ask them about their experience, strength, and hope in their 8th and 9th steps. This is the game changer for your life outside of your recovery journey, right? This is where you're humbling yourself. This is where you're totally relying upon God to do for you what you cannot do for yourself. You are asking God to create connections that maybe would not normally happen in a 24 or 48 hour time period. And there are so many success stories out there of people having people's names on their list that they haven't seen in 10 years. And once they're in this week of their step 8 and their step 9, they will run into that person. Get ready. God does for us what we can't do for ourselves, and God can do much bigger things. And He is very concerned with your sobriety journey, and He wants to protect your sobriety journey. And He sees that you're in a program of action. And remember, our efforts will not return void. Now, this is one that I get a lot of phone calls on. A lot of phone work is spent in step 8 and 9. I'm a mom of 3 young kids. I'm in a marriage that to date is been healed. My marriage has been recovered. I'm in relationships that have been healed and have been recovered. All because of this program. All because of doing this work. I can wake up every single day and ask for God's will and not my will be done. I can stand in front of groups of hundreds of people and not sit in a fear spot that one person is going to show up in this room and that's going to trigger me to a relapse. This is something not to be missed. We want to clear away the wreckage of our past. So some of my success stories through doing 8 and 9s, because I've told you I've done 6 in-depth big book step studies. I've done step work with over 40 women. I've been in these steps for a long time. I've accessed a lot of experience, strength, and hope by sponsoring. So by working with other people and helping them come up with ideas of how to make living amends, God does for me what I can't do for myself. It's almost like a shortcut. So when a similar problem happens in my own life, He's already given me somebody else's experience, strength, and hope to draw upon. So we're seeing how God accesses a physical realm through a spiritual realm, how God will do for us what we can't do for ourselves. And He'll use work that we do with other people to give us direction on how to deal with that ourselves. Now, two of the most successful amends stories that I have had have nothing really to do with other people. They have to do solely with me. When I did the hyenas method, they are very in-depth amends. There's a lot of work that goes in the fourth and the fifth step. And so there's a lot of accountability that there needs to be physical amends made. That was a hard thing for me to swallow 5 years into sobriety, because it was hard for me to sit in states that I had not completed these amends. Like, how can I still be in relationships with these people and not have completed amends? But there was still constant struggle in these relationships. So a prime example here are my 3 children. So in early sobriety, I made a verbal amends to them. I understood that just staying sober every 24 hours was the best living amends that I could make. I was doing the best I could with what I had. And God is everything, or God is nothing. God does tell us that in this world we will have trouble, but we take heart, for He has overcome the world. And we pray for God to overcome our difficulties every single day in the prayers that we've been saying. So with my 3 children, I decided that I was going to write them letters of affirmation and gratitude on each one of them individually. This was a very spiritual experience for me, because I still have the alcoholic thinking. I still want to sit in victim states. I still want to seek out what's wrong with my kids instead of what's right with my kids. I want to look at my kids from worldly measurements and not godly measurements. I look at my children through physical measurements and not spiritual measurements. And I spent, I don't know, maybe a couple days on this, because I have 3 kids. And I prayed about this, and I wrote these letters. I put them in a graphic design app that I have on my phone, so they look pretty. I made them really big. I printed them out, and I put them on their mirrors where they brush their teeth. Remember, I'm not perfect. And this experience was something so spiritual, I can't even put it into words now. I put those letters on their mirrors, and each one of them at different times came down to me crying. They are crying to me and telling me how much they love me. And that was God doing for me what I can't do for myself, because I constantly beat myself in this journey of motherhood. Constantly, there are problems. Constantly, it's hard to see affirmation. Constantly, it's hard to rely upon God to do hard things. One of the biggest things that I've learned from this program is how to pray. And so God taught me how to pray for myself and get rid of my difficulties, so I could pray for my kids. And I could pray for my angels that God gave me through the sobriety journey. I can send them around my kids if those same angels are around me. And God saves our household. Why would they not be around my children? And my motherhood journey has totally changed. The acceptance from the world just doesn't matter anymore. Whenever I come in conflict with my children, I ask God into the situation. I ask for God's provisions. I ask for God's protection. I ask for God's affirmation. I pray for all God's affirmations to be spilled upon my children. They are the most important thing in my life. This is why I'm sober. It's for my kids, not my marriage, not anybody in these rooms, not anybody who is listening to this right now, but it is for my children. And I had a necklace in early sobriety that my husband had given me, and it had my 3 kids' names on it. And every time I wanted to drink or drug, I would grab that necklace, and I would remember, you're going to a 90-day treatment facility if you relapse, and you're not going to see your kids for 90 days. And that was enough to keep me sober. God did for me what I couldn't do for myself, and He gave me a visual image of the love that He has for me in the love I have for my kids. God tells me, if you love your kids this much, how much do you think I love you more tenfold. And he cares about us, and he loves us, and he affirms us, and he will send his angels to protect our sobriety journeys. And that is why I'm here to help other mothers. I want to reach moms before they get to the detox center, before they have to be away from their kids for 90 days, before they have to have a situation with the cops that their kids see. Please, this is my desire. That was a spiritual experience that took 5 years of sobriety. It took a year of doing the hyenas step work in order for me to get there. It took me a year of not sponsoring other women so God could sponsor me. So that was amazing. The second one is I have lost my mother in sobriety. I've lost my grandmother in sobriety. I've lost my grandfather in sobriety. These were the 3 people. God doesn't make mistakes. He knew I was going to need to be sober to deal with the loss of these 3 people. These 3 people were the people that he had used in my life to encourage me, to protect me, to support me financially, emotionally, and physically. And he knew I was going to lose all 3 of them within a 5-year time period. And he knew that I was going to need him directly in order to fill those voids. There were a lot of wrongs done to all 3 of these people in my alcoholic journey. It took me a long time to realize it. It took me so long to understand that it was wrong not to be the daughter that I could be. It was wrong not to be the granddaughter that I could have been. These were misses because I was in my disease of alcoholism. So for my amends this time around, the last time I did it through the hyenas method, I went to the grocery store, I got flowers, and I was going to go to every single one of their graves. So I picked out a day. You have to make time for this. This is a priority. We're going to any lengths. So a lot of these amends may take a longer time. It doesn't mean that you stop step work. You just make a commitment to actually complete these. So I carved out a day, got my kids all to school, and I was going to go to the graves. And I went to my mom's grave first, and I ended up just collapsing on her grave. And it was after 2 years after losing her, and it was a spiritual experience for me that I could just lay all this down and just know that she loves me, that her love for me was enough. None of this mattered. She loved me. Her last words on earth were to me on her deathbed, looking at me in the eyes and telling me, I never want you to forget how proud I am of you, because she got to see me in my first 3 years of sobriety, which was the hardest years of my life ever. No matter what I did. And that was hardest years of my life. And she watched me. She stood beside me. I lived 2 miles from her house. She wasn't overbearing, but she loves me and I love her. And even though she's not here physically, she is here spiritually with me. And I know that she's so proud of me because I'm just sober today. That's it. That's it. She's not proud of me about any of this other stuff, but she is just proud because I am sober today. And I just need to be sober one more day. And she'll be proud of me for that. Then I went over to my grandparents' church, and I shared about this in the beginning of the Big Book Step study that we're doing right now. I go over to their graves, and somebody is getting their name redone on a grave. So I actually can't access the grave. The guys don't speak my language, so they move aside. I put the flowers on the, it is a cremation thing, and I put the flowers down there, and then this is when another spiritual experience happened, right? We talked about my gratitude list in the beginning when we were in the forewords of my spiritual journeys. And this was my true first experience with a church environment. And so I couldn't stand at the grave, so I thought I'll do a prayer walk. There has to be an action item here, so I need to do a prayer walk around this campus. And not only when I did this prayer walk around this campus, God gave me gratitudes on my grandfather. He gave me gratitudes on my grandmother. My grandmother was alive for 1.5 years after my mom passed, and she was a very supportive person in my life. And this is when God did for me what I can't do for myself. And I walked by each building of that church, and He gave me gratitudes. He showed me provisions. When you are in a spiritual program, you will have spiritual provisions. Never before in my alcoholic disease did I access anything but alcohol, right? But now I am going to access a spiritual realm, and God is going to do for me what I can't do for myself. Every day I'm going to wake up. And now, not only did I have gratitudes on these church buildings, but I also reached to a gratitude moment of all the churches that house our recovery meetings. Okay? No recovery meeting gives attention to the churches that are housing us, because this is a God movement. Okay? God, we also see this gratitude. This is all in the 9th step, that God reaches past denominations, and the proof of it is that our recovery meetings meet in probably every denomination of church. God meets us everywhere. So it is a really good, helpful point for me to remember when I'm working with a newcomer and dealing with past spiritual/religious experiences. Remember, all these recovery meetings meet in all kinds of denominational buildings, and I'm in every single one of them. Every single one of them, I am there. Now, we know that He is there from Sermon on the Mount, Emmett Fox. That is one of the books that our original fellowship was based off of. So it was based off of the Oxford groups and Sermon on the Mount and the fellowship. So I often wonder to myself how there's not plagiarism issues between the big book and Sermon on the Mount. But in Sermon on the Mount, God pretty much says, I will be with those who are weak in spirit. So tell me that the newcomer is not weak in spirit. So if you want to be near God, go be near a newcomer. It's pretty much guaranteed. So I hope that you guys have found some experience, strength, and hope in my journey with the 8 and 9. If you look down at your workbook pages, you can make multiple copies of this. You can use the journal that you're using. You can do this any way you need to. But you need to write down everybody's names, and on to the right-hand side, write down what the amends is going to look like. Now, you're going to need to spend this week and focus on doing the amends. Now, we talked about in the forward to the 4th edition, the technology. So a lot of the big book step studies that I've done were not in digital worlds. Now we're in a digital world. So there are a lot of things, and these are a lot of calls that I get that you can do in the digital world to make amends, right? So say you have a childhood friend that there's something you wanting to make an amends for, but again, we don't want to harm other people. You know, you can do fun things like a Facebook post, reach out to them through Messenger. And again, this is a great time to reach out to other members, maybe that are around your same age. So whatever age you are, try to find some Me Too moments and experience strength and hope from people who have done 8 and 9 with access to all this digital. And you can remember to yourself, God does not make hard terms, and He is focused on your heart. He's not focused on results. And we also want to remember that we'll go to any links. Faith without works is dead. So here we are in the works, and we do not argue. We do not argue. So my first sponsor had me write down my verbal amends on note cards, and I wasn't allowed to address anything that was off of the note card. So I'm so excited because this wraps up section 2. Next week, we're going to be going into section 3, steps 10 through 12. Thank you.